In today's webinar, we're going to be talking about using subtotals in the accounting module in Church Windows. My name is Jim, and I will be your leader today. So we're going to spend about the next 20 minutes or so talking through some of the different things involved with using subtotals in the accounting module. I'm joined here today by Ross and Marla, who will be helping me out answering any questions that you might have as we go through our process today. In your GoToWebinar control panel, you have a small red button, usually in the upper left-hand corner of that control panel, that will allow you to either minimize or maximize that screen. Minimizing it gives you a little bit more room on your monitor to see what we're going through in our webinar today. Maximizing it gives you access to the different options there. Most importantly, that questions box. The only thing we would ask that you do is kind of limit your questions generally to using the subtotals in the accounting module here today. More specific questions about your particular church can be directed into our support line number at 800-533-5227, or you can drop us an email into our support email account, simply enough, support@churchwindows.com. So cool. Welcome on in, everybody. Let's go ahead and get started. So the using subtotals in our accounting module, it is a reporting tool, is what subtotals are. It's designed to simply make the different reports that you generate here in the accounting module easier to read for folks. It gets you to the information that you're looking for a little bit quicker, summarizes different groups of accounts for you quite simply, so you can take a look at that when you're running through different reports here in Church Windows. The report I chose for our webinar here today is the Treasurer's Report. So we're going to start by looking at the Treasurer's Report, take a look and see how the different subtotals work on that report. Then we're going to take a step back, and I'm going to show you how you set up those various subtotals, and then a couple other things to clean up at the end there. So the Treasurer's Report is a report in our accounting module that is there to summarize total income, total expenses into your church. So incomes and expenses is the focus of this report. So we're going to go to our Reports/Export tab here along the top, go to Financial button, and click on our Treasurer's Report. Okay. So we'll just take a look at it for July of 2015, and I'll simply click print so we can take a look at this. Takes us to our print preview window. Okay. By default, when you're looking at one of these reports out of Church Windows, you're going to see a series of lines with all of the different accounts that meet the criteria for the report that you are running. So here, for example, is our general tithes and offerings account, the activity for the period in which we ran the report, and various other bits of information as we go to the right based on how you set up your account, or your report rather, here in accounting. What we also have, because of the way we already have our subtotals set up, is we've got this line that goes below a certain number of our accounts that gives us our total general fund income. So it's going to total up all of the accounts that are within that particular subtotal on our account. The other thing I want you to note as we are looking at this is there's also a header for this particular subtotal listed right here. So the subtotal is announced that you've begun your subtotal at the top. So here is our general fund income subtotal. It's going to show you each of the accounts that are within that subtotal. Then it's going to give you the summary or the totals for each of those accounts within that subtotal listed below that. And it's going to do that for each of the subtotals that we have set up for our income accounts on our treasurer's report on here. So just in a moment when we go take a look at it, I'm going to show you how to create that particular subtotal, how to assign accounts to it, how to set up our header for it, which is again is that general fund income here at the top. The other thing I want to point out is that we are listing all of our accounts under income here. And then at the bottom of it, it's got our an account that sort of is existing outside of our subtotals right here. So we've got our last subtotal, which is this total other funds income listed here, but we've got this handbells income, which is displaying below it. And you'll see that that one is not totaled anywhere except for here under total income. So sometimes you've got certain accounts that for whatever reason were not assigned to a subtotal, and you see them kind of hanging around outside of the other subtotals in your system. So we're going to take a look at how to take care of those as well. So that's what we're going to be taking a look at here. Let me go ahead and erase those drawings and we'll go take a look. Okay, so navigating, editing, and managing your subtotals is done under your Manage Accounts tab along the top of Accounting. Then you click on your Subtotals button here. I'm always grateful when I can show folks how this window works as opposed to having to explain it in words, because this is a very visual screen and it helps to actually see the way it works. So this is a good opportunity to learn about this visually in our webinar here. When you first open this window, it is going to show you the 5 basic subtotals that are built into Church Windows: the total assets, liabilities, fund balances, incomes, and expenses. That treasurer's report we were just looking at only showed us our total incomes and our total expenses in there. These 5 subtotals are built into the system, as they are the 5 different types of accounts that we have in accounting, in our fund accounting system that we have for Church Windows. If I click on the little plus button directly to the left of our total income subtotal, it is going to expand and it's going to show us the subtotals that we have created within that total income subtotal there. Total general fund income was that very top subtotal that we saw there on our treasurer's report. Okay, what you do not see by default when you first come into this subtotals window are where your actual accounts slot in when you're working here on your subtotals. It kind of starts in the most general terms and then allows you to get more detailed as you go. Down here at the bottom of the subtotals window, right here is a button that lets you show your accounts that you have in your chart of accounts. So if I click on my Show Accounts button, now it's going to expand one more time. And you'll see if I click on my little plus button next to Total General Fund Income here, now it's going to actually show you a listing of all of the accounts that are within that subtotal. Remember when we saw that handbells income account that was kind of outside of all of our subtotals? This is what that looks like when it's kind of set up that way. If I kind of collapse my general fund income again, you'll notice that this handbells income account is not inside of any of these subtotals here. It's just kind of at the root level, so to speak, for total income here. So if this handbells income is supposed to show up inside of the general fund income subtotal, it's a simple matter of dragging and dropping that to where it goes. So if I left click on this and hold my left mouse button down, I can move it down. You'll see that little yellow arrow button over to the left. It may be pretty tiny on your screen, but it's over there. You kind of point that arrow at the subtotal that you want this account to go into and let the mouse button go, and it will move it down into that subtotal. Another way you can move an account to wherever you need it to go, if I grab this loose offering income account and I want to move that into this total general fund income subtotal, I can simply left click on it, and then over on the right side of the screen you'll see there's a move loose offering income right there, and you can move it using that drop down list on that selection there. So if I click on my down arrow, I can move it over into total general fund income by selecting this here, then clicking on the move account button. When I click that, you'll see that loose offering income is going to now show up here under total income. Okay, you can set up new subtotals whenever you see fit. Let's say you have a particular subtotal you want to create here under total income by using the other buttons down here at the bottom. So if I select total income here, I can add a new subtotal that appears under there by clicking on add new subtotal. When you click on this, you'll notice that over here on the right side, you've got a subtotal name where you can edit the name of that account over here. Total webinar class income. This is our new subtotal that we created here for our webinar. When I press the enter key on my keyboard, you'll see that it creates that subtotal right over here. Now it's going to be available to add new accounts to it, and I'm going to show you a very easy way to do that here in a couple of minutes. The other thing about the way when you have a particular subtotal selected on the left side of your window, all of this stuff over here on the right side are the properties of what you have selected on the left. So if I go back to my total general fund income account and select that, notice there's a checkbox for displaying as a header over here on the right side. And that was that header I was highlighting on our treasurer's report a moment ago. So that's where you set those up. I can change that by simply typing in here. Okay. And you know, I'm focusing on the income accounts because the report we're kind of playing with here in our class is that treasurer's report. Let's see. Okay, and we'll talk about how to add accounts to that webinar in just a moment. Let's go take a look. Oh, a couple of other things about the way reports display. The order that the accounts are going to appear when I run my treasurer's report are dependent upon the order in which I have my subtotals set up here on my screen. Because the total general fund income on our screen here is displaying at the top underneath total income, that's why those accounts appear first. If I wanted to, I could select my total general fund income account, use these arrow buttons over here, right here, on the right side of that panel on our screen here, and I can move it down on my reports by clicking on the down arrow. So I can move my total general fund income and have it appear below total building fund income and below total mission fund income if I chose to by using those arrows. So now when I exit out of here and I come back into my treasurer's report under reports, financial and treasurer's report, now we'll see when I generate this report that that's no longer what the accounts are at the very top of my report. So now notice when we're looking at this that the building fund income is actually the one that we see at the very top of our report here. And then you'll see the general fund income is the third one down my list here. Now, a couple of other things about the order in which accounts appear on reports in the accounting module. Notice that inside of each of these subtotals that the accounts appear in account number order. If you start at the top and just go down your list here, all of these accounts do not appear in account number order. They do appear in account number order within each subtotal, however. So you'll see general tithes and offerings 410,100. You'll see flower income 410,175, 410,400, 440, 405 for handbells income. So you'll see within each subtotal that they will appear in account number order. If you do not display the account number column on a report, then within each subtotal, these accounts will appear in alphabetical order as opposed to an account number order. So if I remove this account number column, you're going to see the sorting within general fund income is going to change. So if I exit out of here, I come to my columns tab along the top, I select the account number and I remove that column from my report. Now when I print this same report, what you're going to see is that within general fund income, now general tithes and offerings is no longer the one on the top. It's alphabetical by name now. So it's flour income, then general tithes and offerings, etc. on down the list. So these are the tools that you have to kind of control the order in which these accounts appear on your reports. If I wanted my general fund income back to being the very top of my report here, just as a quick review, all I would have to do is come back to my subtotals window, back under Manage Accounts and Subtotals, expand my total income subtotal here, highlight total general fund income, and use my arrow buttons over here to change the order from within that report. So these are the controls that you have to control the order that your accounts appear on all reports in Church Windows. It's the same for other reports where they display accounts for totaling on a report. So for example, a balance sheet report doesn't focus on income and expense accounts. It focuses on assets, liabilities, and fund balances. Okay. Now, when you're adding new accounts into your accounting module, you have the ability at the time that you add the account to assign it to a subtotal. So I wanted to make sure I covered that today. Adding a new account here in the accounting module can be done a couple of different ways. I like coming here to the Manage Accounts tab, clicking on the Accounts plus minus button along the ribbon bar at the top, and then I'm going to go ahead and add a new income account here. When you add an income account, it's going to ask you which of your funds you're going to link it to, of course, at the very top. I'm going to make this go to my general operating fund. Then you name your account. I'm adding an income account as an example for our webinar here. I'm going to give it an account number. It always begins with the number 4. 4.50.123. And then you'll notice when you're adding these accounts that it actually asks you what subtotal you want it to belong to. So this allows you to kind of control that at the time you're adding the account. So I want this to appear in my total webinar class income subtotal. So you select that, you click on your add account button here, and you're going to see that show up on reports in the future underneath that subtotal. That subtotal drop down appears regardless of where you add that account. So for example, if I'm on my chart of accounts over on the tree view, you can also add new accounts here by right-clicking, for example, on your general operating fund, add an income account to the general operating fund here. You'll notice that you can select what subtotal a particular account is going to belong to from there as well. All right, folks, I've been babbling on for approximately 20 minutes on here. Those are all of the you know, again, subtotals, it's a reporting tool that you have available to you for the accounting module. It allows you to group accounts together, make them a little easier for you to locate when you're looking at your reports. Sums up groups of accounts when you're looking at them. Um, yeah, okay, so that's about all I have for you here today. I'd like to thank you guys for joining me. Um, hope you have a good afternoon. If you have any additional questions, kind of specifically about subtotals, feel free to go ahead and type those in there. I'll leave the room here, the webinar room, open for a little bit for questions that you may have. So thank you so much for joining me here today, and I hope you have a lovely afternoon. Oh, question coming in about whether subtotals kind of reset on a yearly basis. They do not. When you set up your subtotals, when you open up a new year in accounting, it's going to ask you if you want to copy your chart of accounts over to the new year. If you choose to do that, it actually brings the subtotals over as well, going year to year. So I guess it kind of depends. If you open up a new year and you tell it to start from scratch with a brand new chart of accounts, of course, your subtotals will need to be recreated at that time. But if you carry your chart of accounts forward from year to year to year, the subtotals are going to come with them as well. Okay, which reports you may not add into? Namisha has a question about now. The thing I kind of wanted to express as well, that when you're setting up these subtotals, of course, these apply to all of your reports that you work with in the accounting module. So like the examples that I was using in the webinar are total income. So the subtotals that I've created in here would apply to not necessarily just your treasurer's report. It may also apply to like a list chart of accounts report, for example. So the same subtotals I set up, you know, the exact same subtotals that I set up that we were displaying a treasurer's report for, those same subtotals would appear on other reports. So if I do a list chart of accounts report, and I printed this, you will also see them if I go down to my income accounts on here. So if I scroll down to my income accounts, we're taking a look at these here. You'll see the same subtotals. There's my general fund income subtotal. I scroll down. The next one you'll see is the building fund income, the mission fund income. As I continue to scroll on down, you're going to see our webinar class income subtotal that I just created. So you'll see that on all reports that they're appropriate for.